There are some moments in life that feel like somebody has just turned the lights back on when you didn't realize that you've been sitting in a dark room for hours. You know? I think this episode is going to be one of them for a lot of you. Today, I am joined by the incredible Honorata. She is an artist, a therapeutic practitioner, and somebody who's built a life where creativity is both the compass and the medicine. Her journey is one of deep return to her creative self, from her roots in Poland to years in the corporate world to one unexpected workshop that changed absolutely everything. She found her way back to creativity not as a hobby, but as a lifeline. And since 2015, she's been helping others do the same. Honorata is a qualified integrative creative counsellor and clay therapist, a group workshop facilitator, and the founder of Artlysing, a concept which she coined to remind us that sometimes instead of analysing our lives and analysing ourselves, we can artlyse them instead through our creative expression. She speaks to the power of creative wounding, the inner critic that feeds on early shame, and the very real impact that burnout can have on our creative soul. I even dive a little bit into my experience with that too. But even more than that, she speaks on the way back. If you've ever painted something only to tuck it away unseen, if you've ever doubted the right to call yourself an artist because someone once said you weren't good enough, if your creativity has felt more like pressure than play lately, or if you found yourself overthinking, overworking, and disconnected from the joy of the process, then Honorata's story is going to meet you where you are. And I think this episode is going to give you a lot of light and a lot of freedom to continue on your journey. This episode is an invitation to soften, to reconnect, to stop analyzing everything and overthinking everything and start artlysing it instead, right? So let's dive in, shall we? Honorata, a massive warm welcome to Maverick Mind. Honorata, a massive warm welcome to Maverick Mind. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I'm sure you have so much wisdom that will really help people listening to guide them through so many different things they might be coming up with in their creative path at the moment. But just to kind of give people an idea of who you are, where you come from, and your journey to be here, or your journey through creativity, maybe could you paint a little picture, excuse the pun, of kind of where you're from, what growing up was like, your first kind of introduction into the world of creativity, if you can remember that far.
Okay, long story, but let's go for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm originally from Poland. I moved to the Great Britain over 20 years ago. I am practicing artist and creative therapist. I work with variety of creativity in therapy. However, my journey into creativity, I like to say I'm a late bloomer, didn't happen automatically. Very creative as a child. There was recognition in my family that I'm the creative one. However, nothing really been kind of done around that. It's the resources, finances, and all that. So I actually graduated with masters in sociology, and already back then, at mid-20s, recognized something was missing. Life took off. I moved to another country. I spent 9 years in corporate. And probably halfway through that, I knew I needed to go back to creativity. Sign up for a workshop, random workshop. I mean, not random. I had this passion about art journals, which is basically creating in a book your own personal story in a creative visual way. And something clicked, and I knew in that workshop there's no way of going back. So I'm thinking about 10 years now, I completely reinvented myself, recreated from someone who was craving creatively into someone who was actually making a living from it, training other people, training professionals, and helping people through the therapy, creative therapy.
Wow, that's such a it's crazy, isn't it, when we get those like
Crazy when I
light
look at that,
bulb
yes.
kind of moments to go, hang on a minute, this is it. It's
This is
kind of
it.
mad. I'd love to
Yes.
know, like going back to kind of your childhood in Poland or your years living in Poland, creativity in general celebrated over there?
It was celebrated, but not the way, not in an open way like we celebrate it now. It was more boxed into you may be that creative or artistic, and then you would pursue that career. But because what was the same back then, what it is still the same, and now we're talking more than 20 years because I'm 45. It was not perceived as career that generates good income.
Mm,
So it was perceived as something very risky to pursue it, and something that doesn't guarantee opportunities for financial opportunities. So it was discouraged quite often, or
yeah.
perceived as thing on side. You do that, your little hobby, and you fiddle there with the brush.
Yeah, I think that's a really common narrative because I think it's been a narrative in society like around
Yes,
the world really that to make money you don't go into a creative
yeah.
path.
And
Never.
I'm very, very against the myth of starving artists.
Oh, me too. The listeners will know that I bang on about this all the time.
Yeah.
um,
I
uh,
make the best money in all my, when I look at my professional life, working life, which is over 20 years now, that chunk of time, I'm thriving.
Yeah, exactly. It's absolutely possible. And also, I come back to this a lot, and I'm sure you'll resonate with this, that we're often paint or through history, we've been painted this image that in order that the image of an artist, if you think of like a
Mhm.
cliche image in your mind, they're usually broke and they have
Yes.
some kind of brokenness to themselves, or they feel broken, or they're kind of starving both financially and in terms of their kind of mental health too.
Yes, that they're
And that
fragile. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and actually, those two things will stifle your creativity more than anything else.
Mhm.
To be broke and also to maybe not look after your mental health are two things that will stifle your creativity more than anything else, I think.
Absolutely. And it is a myth that sadly became so strong that even now in education, creativity is not encouraged enough. Plus, on top of that, we have fear of parents who bringing up young people. So I work quite a lot with young people as well. This beautiful stage in your life when you feel everything is possible. You're
Mm.
16, 17, everything is possible. You have so much energy. And if you get discouraged at that stage, really hard to reconnect later. Still possible though, I'm the proof.
Yeah, it's definitely hard because I think we kind of gather that narrative in our mind. I think when something happens at that age or when you're at school, I'll set an example for the listeners. My mum, and she won't mind me putting this out on the internet, I'm sure. But when she was at school, I think she was told by a teacher that she wasn't very good at art. So
Mhm.
she carried on that narrative throughout her whole life.
Absolutely.
And she
Yes.
started art classes now at like 65.
It's never too
um,
late for
yeah,
joy.
isn't it? But it's just like now she's only just kind of still working with that narrative of where she
Mhm.
does something in art class and she's like, well, that's really bad. And I was like, well, actually, it's subjective. Like, you're saying it's bad. Someone else might say it's a masterpiece. You don't know that.
Yes, so what you describe here, actually, there's a name for that in therapy. It's called creative wounding. So
Mm,
creative wounding is those early and very often educational experiences where our creativity or expression is ridiculed, laughed at, or criticized. And sadly, this happens when we are younger, and that creates the wound, which later carries us through the life. Like you said, it creates that narrative.
mm.
So that creative wounding needs healing. So you can start creating from position I'm enough and my creativity matters, and regardless what it is, yes, I'm trying to improve, but where I am, it's good enough, and I have the right to express myself.
Yeah, love that. Is there anything like any other kind of tools or tips you could share for maybe somebody who is a creative sort of some kind, an artist, a designer, whoever, who does still have that narrative in their mind
A
somewhere,
wounding.
a
Mhm.
wounding somewhere? Yeah,
Definitely work with what we call in parts therapy, where we identify parts.
yeah.
The inner critic is very often it's almost like the creative wounding is food for inner critic. It grows on that, so it will take people back. They create something and the critic will come up and say, look, this is rubbish, and takes you back in the memory to that event, or even if you didn't remember on unconscious level, you still feel that shame or, I'm not good enough. So I would always encourage people to unpack that. And from more creative point of view, so even if someone is, working in a creative field that is more precise design, where the level of skills needs to be manifested, have avenue of expression for yourself where you can focus on process rather than the outcome, because inner critic is holding on to the outcome. If you detach
Mm.
from outcome, there's nothing for inner critic to come up to the surface. So I'm talking about like drawing with closed eyes, or doing abstracts with painting with your hands or fingers, because it is meant to be messy and controlled, and it doesn't matter what it looks like. Your inner critic's got nothing to attach him or herself to. So
I love that.
process-based artistic process, just on the, so you do, and what I sometimes do as well, I encourage people create lots of like drawings with closed eyes or paintings on cheap paper, get cheap materials, one after each other, and bin it,
Mm.
because you have nothing to compare against. And this is just internal process, which matters more than external, and it's driving the external.
Yeah, I love that so much. That's such a great practice and a great idea, even if I think just to do for fun anyway.
Yeah, and I do lots
um,
of workshops, group workshops like that, and people sometimes like, "Oh my God, what? What do you want me to
yeah.
do?" So I work a lot in community arts where people would walk in. Yeah, I don't know skill levels. They may have no skills, so I need to offer something that they can just enjoy and gives them possibilities.
Mm. Yeah, the whole idea of not attaching to outcome is something that I teach a lot through the lens of mindfulness as well. Because a lot of the
Yes.
time we do have this like striving culture, and I think we have especially when you're an ambitious human being, everything feels like it's like for a purpose and it's for this big vision. But the magic really happens when you have that vision, but you're also not attached to it
Yeah, and you're in the
100%
process.
happening. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And it's nothing wrong with having purpose, or purpose is driving us. We need that. It gives us a sense of meaning, vision as well. But what about if we put the goals into the process?
Mm.
So the process is my goal. I want to experience something. I'm creating for experience. I'm not creating for the pretty painting of the flower.
Yeah,
So you
exactly.
probably, yeah, never gonna see me on those, which I have nothing against, it works for some people, but I'm not the kind of person that would be providing, sip and paint because everyone is painting the same flower. And I'm like, no, that's not me.
Yeah, no, to be honest, I went to one of those things here in Barcelona. It was like a meeting new female friends in Barcelona thing. And it was everyone had to sit around and draw the same picture of an Aperol
Yeah,
Spritz. And they were like going through the like, you paint the base
stages. Yeah.
layer, then you do the. And then I was just sort of like looking around, and like some people were getting creative with it. There were some people that painted completely different things. But I was just like, well, now I have this painting of an Aperol Spritz that I don't want in my house.
No,
And what am I going to
yeah.
do with it?
So this is very much about outcome-based,
Yeah.
approach. However, I'm really glad to hear there was some mavericks there who painted
Yeah.
something completely different. So, if I was sitting there, I'll be probably with the painting of the flower, I'll be painting naked woman.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. On the other side of the coin, I go to a life drawing class a lot here
So
in
do I.
Barcelona.
Mhm.
And I love life drawing because I think it just really gets you out of it's the
I love
same
it.
thing. It's like,
Amazing.
do you draw this thing in 3 minutes and you have to
Yes.
just kind of get out of yourself and
Mhm.
just scribble it out. But again, when I walk around and look at people's things at the end, some people come up with just like the most amazingly visionary things. It don't look anything like the person that was posing, but it doesn't matter.
No,
It's just,
I absolutely, I'm with you on that. I would do exactly the same. Just the human body is there for interpretation.
mm,
And that's
yeah.
the inspiration. We don't need to do copies. We have cameras.
Yes. Yes, exactly. That's very true. Very true. So when you kind of backtrack into your kind of journey here, what can you remember what it was that triggered that kind of I miss creativity from my life while you were in
With
corporate?
my deteriorating mental health, I
Mm,
reached that point where I knew There was something was lacking, uh, something massive was lacking. I had that awareness. Of course, as a trained therapist, I've been in therapy for, few different periods of time as a part of requirement of the training, but also before I entered the training. And I knew something was there lacking. And whatever was lacking, I knew was creating this deteriorating effect. What I experienced in that workshop, the first one I went to, and I think that was the trigger for me. I entered state of flow very quickly. And
Mm.
state of flow, which is the healthiest, mentally, emotionally, we are regulated emotionally in state of flow. I entered that very quickly with creativity, and I completely lost the track of time. This workshop was 2 days, maybe 8 hours a day. I only remember walking in and then walking, away in the evening. So I knew this is it. The state of flow, if you experience that, it's just something I couldn't not to have it, basically.
Mm.
It was something so precious that I knew almost like my life depended on it. I know it sounds dramatic, but it had massive meaning to me. And so we're talking now about, that was 12 years ago when I went into the workshop, actually. um I turned my life around, so I really committed since then, because I knew what it gave me was so precious.
Wow. Yeah, well, I think do get that feeling of flow, especially when you've been in a space where your mind's been very what feels like busy and loud. Sometimes like
Mhm.
our mind can feel like Liverpool Street Station or something, just like all these people kind of buzzing
Mm.
around there, and then you get into something where it's just clear, and it's
Yeah,
kind of like it happens quite quickly. It is a bit
it
like, oh
does.
wow, I had no idea that that was even possible for my brain to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, in a state of flow, I think what I'm kind of, in a positive way addicted to is those sparkle based moments where you're working on something creatively, an idea hits you. And in the moment it hits you, yes, this is a
Mm.
brilliant idea. That excitement, it's a level of excitement I feel I enjoy. Risk and excitement. Risk, will I pursue it? Will it come up as I'm kind of hoping? But also the enjoyment of idea which wasn't there a second ago. It's
Mm.
like universe is bombarding you with stuff that, you didn't know was there.
Yeah, I call that like the full body yes. It's like when
I love that.
your whole
Yes.
body like lights up and goes bing, like this is
Yeah,
it.
this
And
is it.
it's like your body says it before your mind even knows what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love visual arts because that's where it is. I create body of work that's quite. I love drawing and painting. Variety of media. I'm not like one type of media that I'd be completely bored. But just that moment, that really, split seconds. Do this. This is going to
Mm.
work.
Yeah, that's great what you just said there as well, because I think a lot of artists specifically, but creators of all kinds, we think that we have to kind of niche down in order to achieve success in what we're doing, like follow one medium or do one style or
And that's again
one
focus on the product.
anything. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Outcome,
But
do one because then you make it looking good. I
mm,
even go against the myth, we talked about the starving artist. So what I've done in my creative life, I made this decision, the business decision, professional decision years ago, very early, and I'm really proud of myself that I managed to be so integral in knowing what I needed. I do not do commissions
mm,
at all. And my life, my financial life is based on creativity. I'll make good money, but I don't do commissions. This is another myth, being sold out to us. You have to produce art and sell it. I don't want to produce, I create, I don't produce. That's the difference. Uh,
mm.
I don't want to be under requirement or demand of someone externally telling me what to create. Some people really thrive on that, good for them, but it wasn't for me. And it's important to recognize what's going to work for you.
Yeah, exactly. And is there any kind of journey you went on or insight you can share on finding that what really does work for you? I mean, did you do commissions and find that you didn't
Exactly.
like
So
enjoy
it
it
is
or
sometimes, yeah, you sometimes have to get lost and go
mm,
into paths that are not yours to find the one that's for you. So I did maybe, occasionally something for someone, and just it didn't sit right with me. I didn't enjoy the process, because freedom is very important to me. That's one of the top values in my life. So I need
Mm.
freedom to create from within whatever comes up for me. Commission is not going to do that for me. It's going against that concept.
Mm.
If your top value is producing a really high quality drawing, you may thrive on commissions because it will be a challenge for you. You will enjoy it. But I'm not. For me, I thrive when I can produce something original from myself.
Mm.
So yeah, getting lost, trying those things. But I think it's important you try things without feeling guilty about trying things that don't work for you. It's part of your growth. It's not a failure. That's how you
Yeah.
learn. It's a
Yeah.
learning experience. It's not mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes we get really fearful of making those
Mhm.
mistakes when we're the kind of creative that's taken that leap to do the thing, create a vision or create a life from based on our creativity. But then I think we do get scared to make a mistake because then it's kind of validating that narrative that artists don't make money or that artists can't
Failure.
be
Mhm.
successful or something. Whereas actually, I've failed so many times at so many different things, and it's always led to something actually more successful in the end.
Yes, you need to be taking those steps towards something. So, it's not like you wasted your time. You never waste your time. You see, what I learned from doing commission was very powerful. I don't want to
Mm.
do commissions, and I came up with ways of making money from creativity that are linked with my soul, my purpose. So how powerful was that unpleasant experience, really? It was great in that respect. Not great when it was happening, but in a big scale, big picture, that led me to where I needed to be. So you always learn something. If you, I don't know, go and invest your time, energy setting up a website or platform because you'll be thinking about, I don't know, doing something digitally, and then you recognize I hate working in the front of the screen. That's not for me. Again, you're walking away with ideas. What can I do that I'm going to enjoy? Maybe you're going to end up working in the forest eventually.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
So, we all learn. We all learn through our life. And again, this is what you talked about. We have this concept of this is it, this is where we're getting. Yes, we are getting, but the journey is back and forth. There are lots of rocky roads and curves. It's not up, 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 up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to be on this path is to embrace the fact that it's going to be a bit rocky. It's totally worth it.
Yeah,
But I think we have to have tools and things that we do to maintain our resilience and kind of keep
absolutely.
um, maintaining that trust in our vision and trust in our talent as well, because we can question our talent multiple
Yes,
times a
that
day
may crash us.
sometimes.
Yeah, that self-worth, creative self-worth may be crushed. Yes.
Yeah. Are there tips that you or things that you personally do to help really nurture
Mhm.
that sense of resilience?
So for me personally, and also in majority of my work with the client is something quite simplistic. I always advocate for self-compassion.
Mm.
Because without self-compassion, you need to love yourself, to
Hmm.
forgive yourself, to move forward, to be okay with mistakes. So the sense of shame and blame is not generated. So when we have high self-compassion, we're not so likely to go into self-shaming and blaming. Feeling good enough about ourselves, and we're okay to be in the universe, we're okay to create, we're okay to be as we are with our creativity. And I think that the fact, your creativity matters is really important for creatives. It matters regardless of if it's big on social media or small. What I like to bring up to people when I talk about it is imagine you are like your mom, painting something late in her life. So let's imagine her Sunday morning. She goes into her, I don't know if she paints in the kitchen or she has a shed in the garden, whatever. She goes there and she paints for 2 hours. She's experiencing enormous, sense of joy, achievement. She's learning something about it. She's thinking about the colors. So let's just extract her experience. And we have professional artists working on something the same time as your mom is painting on Sunday morning. He's experiencing the joy, sense of achievement, thinking about colors. Those two experiences are equal.
Yeah,
And it doesn't
exactly.
matter that this guy sold thousands of paintings and your mom hasn't sold anything and is in her 60s starting. Doesn't matter. Sense of connection with your own creativity matters equally.
That's so true, and a really like powerful kind of analogy to kind of paint that picture again. If
So
he's
your creativity
excuse the pun.
matters
Yeah,
always.
absolutely, and that your creativity is like worthy of expression,
Mhm.
no matter what for.
Yeah, because the substance of it is it's not attached to outcome.
Hmm. Yes, exactly, and it again it's so subjective as well. You don't know which is better or which is worse just because one might be in the
Absolutely
Tate
not.
and the other one's in a garden shed.
Exactly.
You don't
With
know.
art being so diverse and
Yeah.
creative expression being probably the most diverse we've seen, in history of humanity. Um, Now entering digital input as well, you can't say something matters more, less. We are complex human beings and we respond to different things.
Yeah, totally. I think that we're society often gives us this image that things have to be like good or bad, you
Hmm.
know, and something is good or something is bad. There's something that I really nurtured through mindfulness, this idea of non-duality, that things are
Yes.
not good or bad, things are not right or wrong, things are not wanted or unwanted. Everything is welcome as it is, whether that's when you're meditating
Yes.
and it's a thought, or whether it's someone 100 different paintings out in the world. You know, everything is valid, everything is welcome,
Yeah.
nothing is right or wrong.
And this is what you just said, actually, the best way of working with that inner critic, I was talking about, if you remove the spectrum of good and bad. So if you imagine there's a line, bad is there, good is at the top of the line, remove the line completely. Good and bad is non-existing. Just the whatever you created exists.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's a great way to put it as well. As you kind of went through that kind of reintroduction, let's call it, into the creative world, at what point then did you start to go into creative therapy?
So let me think. It was probably 4 years into creativity because I recognized how much I healed personally through creativity. So my way of using creativity was very much around my mental health. That was the initial, first step. And as I kind of entered that journey and I had been doing it for years, I recognized how powerful that was for myself. And I also recognized I had a gift of connecting with people and running groups. That's something I do naturally. Um, and that led me towards, by that time I already was running groups and I recognized that some people needed more than just the group. They needed one-to-one. And that led me towards training as a counselor in the UK.
Wow. And now you kind of help people to become
Mhm.
a counselor too, right?
I am counseling tutor, yes. So I train students who want to be counselors, and I also train for separate organizations. As the one that I'm very connected with is Creative Counselors in Great Britain, and we provide professional training for people who are already trained as counselors but are looking at and introducing creativity into therapy room.
Right. And as that is that mostly for to use with creative people, or is it creative kind of
No,
counseling
no,
techniques to for
that's
anyone?
again, another kind of um a little bit assumption that creative therapy is for creative people. Actually, it's not. It really works. I've seen the best result with people who actually never thought they could use creativity in therapy because they simply never had opportunity in their life, and they respond so well. They come up with there's that freshness. With people who have history of creativity, there are like two groups. Some who come and are really willing to do creative stuff and it works beautifully, or we're having creative people who worked in arts or creative businesses and they are blocked creatively, or they're so attached to the outcome that even using creativity in therapy is becoming challenging.
Yeah, I guess sometimes when you know kind of technique to creativity. Maybe if you know how to draw, you know
Mhm.
how to like make something look like what it is, or something that can actually be a hindrance. I think for something like that,
Yeah,
you like it kind
exactly.
of hinders our playfulness sometimes.
Yes, and that is a big part of my work as well, work with playful inner child. So this
Mm.
is the child before someone said at school, your drawing is rubbish or whatever. This is the child that don't care about outcome, and this is the kind of child that draws pink elephant and tells you this is right.
Yeah.
Because I drew it, so it's existing.
Mm.
So, so that we all have that in us, but many people have it blocked. And sadly, many artistic people have it blocked, but
Yeah.
they don't talk about it. It's a
It
bit of taboo.
is a bit of a taboo, yeah. As a lot of people listening to this are the kind of people carving their own path, they're creating their own life, they're bringing some vision to reality. I'd love to know, like, in the pursuit of what you do now compared to what you had in corporate, was there a lot of fear to go out on your own?
Absolutely. Yes, there was, and I'm not going to lie,
Yeah,
because I spent years in corporate where I was paid every month without worrying about where money comes from. I mean, no, I went to work, but it's a
yeah,
very different world when you are the one who needs to generate that income. And like, a month ago, we rescheduled this interview because I was sick. I had to cancel on my work for a week, and
yeah,
I'm not paid for my sick. I generate income that I put the money on side, but in general, that those are the things that you are fearful of. Yes, lots of fear, but I think small steps, for me personally, small steps worked. So doing one thing at the time and not jumping into another myth like I'm just gonna do this and it's going to be successful. So I was quite clever in that respect. So small steps, and I used to maintain, a little bit of old ways till I was fully confident I can now let this go and fully just go self-employed. So I've done it gradually, and I do encourage people to do it gradually because it reduces the anxiety a lot, and also gives people peace of mind in terms of you're not so stressed, so you can think more clearly. But there was a moment when I had to let go, safety net and fully just that's it. And that was scary, yes. But then I really wanted to do it. So,
yeah,
that saying, fear it and do it. That needs to
yeah.
happen sometimes, but do it in a, kind of reasonable way.
Yeah, I used to be like the number one person that would be like, quit your job and do what you want to do. But actually, I think having done that and gone through that, I actually now also advise most people. I mean, it's right for some people, 100%, but for a lot
Yeah,
of creatives, it's not right because then we do attach to the outcome because we do need the
yes,
money.
exactly. And that's where you can poison your creativity.
Mm,
And you can develop more, unhealthy relationship with your creativity, and that will damage you internally, your spirit, your creative soul. So I think personally, for me, that's what worked. But I know because I wouldn't be a person like, you said you were able to do, just give up. My anxiety level wouldn't allow me for that. But
yeah.
step by step, I did, and it worked.
Yeah, I think I could do it because it wasn't like I wasn't working in corporate. I was
Hmm.
working I had a business already, but I was also working as a yoga teacher and a massage therapist at the time. And a lot of my income came from massage therapy, but I was extremely burnt out from doing that because it's very physical
Yeah.
and I was running around London doing that. And I felt like that was really holding me back from what I could do with my fashion business I had at the time, which wasn't making money. As fashion businesses take a really long time to make a profit. But it was growing and it was kind of um, growing in other ways, I would say. Um, so yeah, I just quit that job, which was the right thing to do for at that time. But at the same time, it didn't do much. Like it might not have given me a bit more energy,
Hmm.
but it didn't do a lot for the anxiety, definitely.
It's personal journey, isn't it? And it's important to know what support is there as well.
Yeah,
And also, what do you need to feel supported? So, financially, what can you afford not to earn and for how long? So you have to be quite realistic and down to earth before you make those decisions. And yeah. I'll be honest when it comes to that. I'm quite passionate about, you can make it work with creativity. Creativity can bring you money. It's a myth that it doesn't. Just you have to find the way it's going to work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the time we're kind of painted this picture, especially if you listen to a lot of like entrepreneurial podcasts
Mhm.
or read a lot of entrepreneurial books, they give a lot of a lot of them do say like just jump and do it and kind of hustle your way there. But I think not all of it, but a lot of that advice isn't actually very helpful for a creative mind.
It's not very sustainable, and
Mm,
as a therapist, I have to say it does increase the risk of burnout.
yeah.
And if you burn out, you're not only going to burn out physically, mentally, your creativity is going to suffer from a burnout very heavily because you will disconnect as the result of the burnout. So you have to survive. You're going to disconnect from things that, take different type of energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, um, I've burnt out before. Well, I think a few times. From the being a massage therapist and also at the end of having that fashion business, I was very burnt out. And I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I can't remember exactly when. But something about my experience with creative burnout, specifically when you're a creative person, and that is the thing that has been the result of the burnout, is that then your nervous system doesn't feel safe to create anymore because you
No.
think that you're gonna whatever you make is gonna bring you back into that state. And it was a real process of like rewiring
Yes,
to bring myself
absolutely.
back into find my voice again, I'd say.
Yes, and it's really serious. I used to run for a year and a half online support group for burnout, but general burnout, not specifically creative. But this is exactly what you're saying. The burnout is retraining our nervous system for surviving. So we're not the nervous system is recognizing it's not safe. So I'm going to pull my surviving mechanisms.
Mm,
And sadly, with creativity, this is going to be all connected. And it's a big price to pay for that when you
mm.
disconnect creatively. And it's really sad to go through something like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But as I said, some of us just kind of hear all the advice and think that that's what you have to do. But as you say, it's possible to make a living doing this, but you do not have to do it in a way that's going to burn you out. Absolutely.
No. And that's the self-compassion comes back. You need to feel good enough to give yourself permission to rest and not to burn out.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of changing gears a little bit, going back to that time where you did start to kind of shift your way
Mhm.
into the world that you're in now. A lot of what people worry about is um, kind of external judgments and things like
Mhm.
that about pursuing your own thing, about
Mhm.
deciding that you're going to defy the odds and make a living off your art when everyone thinks it's impossible, but we've gathered that it's
Crazy.
not. I'd
Could
love to
be.
know, did you have any experiences with that at that time?
Not with maybe, direct my direct circle, people know me, they know me creating long time. So that was very supportive, including family. But in general, yes, there is that. And when I left corporate, some people couldn't understand. So when I left, I didn't leave like, "Oh, I'm just going to do art." I left for a little part-time job so I could develop my art and
Yeah.
creative business on site. But even that decision was criticized or not understood. I was leaving, I work for big company, international company, and it was very much, oh my God, like I'm leaving this golden, place here with all those benefits, including dental cover. So I'm laughing at it now, but that's what it was. That was reality. Yes, lots of people didn't understand. But those people who don't understand, we need to also understand them. They're coming from place of fear,
Mm,
and that things may not, so that's why they rather be in environments where there's that monthly pay and so on. So because they fear without that, it's difficult to survive. So they may not understand you. But I've never been met with any, hostility or anything like that. But I did get the sense some people just couldn't get the head around my decision.
mm. Yeah, I think sometimes we hold ourselves back because we think people are going to judge us more than they actually do.
They can always judge, but we need to remember quite often what people are judging others, it's what they can't tolerate about themselves.
Mm,
There's a simple
so true.
projection mechanism going on quite often. And again, back to, self-worth and self-compassion, you need to be trusting yourself and have that support. Support network is important as well, having people around who may not even know anything about what you do, may not even be creative, but you have people who support if that's what you love doing, go for it. So that's
Yeah.
another way, you need creatives as well, because you need that connection with someone who's got that brain waves like you, but also having support people who may not even, do anything creative, but they know you as a person and they know what it's doing to you and it's good. So they want the best for you.
Yeah, definitely. And you can find creative communities. I think if you're listening to this and you're thinking you live somewhere that there's not a lot of creative people or something, you can find creative communities online, and it really, or in places that you wouldn't think there was one, or you can create your own. I mean, I know we got connected through Nikki, and she created her own writing circle, which
Yes.
she spoke about at her episode of the podcast was a few back. So you can kind of create that for yourself, and having people that are doing what you're doing really, really does help push you forward for sure. Because it can be really
Absolutely.
lonely.
Yeah, connection with creatives is crucial. Yeah, but
Yeah.
also having connection with those who, support you as a person, because then you are as a person, creative person, you are, that's the whole who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Well, Honorata, I think I could talk to you all day. But just so people can come and find you whenever they can you let everyone know where the best place is to find you?
So people can find me on Facebook or my website, which is www.artlysing. So that's art, and then lysing. It's a mix of words like analyzing by using art, so artlysing.com.
Okay.
And on socials, Instagram, Honorata Artlysing, and the same on the Facebook. I'm there. I'm happy to connect with people. I always post lots of art just to shake people up. So yeah, everyone's welcome to connect.
Yeah, amazing. Well, of course, leave the link to all those places in the show notes. Once again, thank you so much for
Thank you
coming on. I
so
think
much.
that everyone will get so much out of everything that you said. So I've loved this so much. So thanks again.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that. Take care.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Maverick Mind. I hope that you've loved it, and if you have, I would appreciate it so much if you would subscribe and write a 5-star review on wherever you're listening to this podcast from. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, I invite you to join me over on Instagram at maverickmindco or on my website maverickmind.elliefoden.com. And I'll see you in another podcast very, very soon.